Hi, I'm Marcia Eckerd.
And I'm Rob Bernstein. What should we talk about today, Marcia?
Well, we're going to talk about something strange for us because people have been asking, who are you? And how did you get to work together? And so, Rob?
Wait. Why do we start with me? Who am I? Well, in college you develop who you are, and part of my developmental process of who I am or who I was in college had to do with my educational belief, understanding these different ways of approaching education, and I developed who I was through that. It's sort of interesting.
Yeah, Rob got his graduate degree from Columbia, studying child development, and he became a teacher for a number of years. But he was developing his way of understanding by not having some theory of how kids were developing and what they should be doing and making them do it, but rather going straight to the experience of the child and working from there. And with encouragement, he called it the Bernstein Method and the cognitive method. Wrote a book called Uniquely Normal, which got 5, I think, gold awards for autism, for parenting, for mental health and psychology, and one other. And it really became his passion, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, it's a passion, and it's also bringing out who I am and was, and it's a creative process. So like you too, that what we've done is something that really it's on the shoulders, right, of John Dewey and people before us, but it really hasn't been present in our present culture of education.
Yeah, my training was as a clinical psychologist. I did a year of my internship on children and a year on adults because I wanted to work with both, and I got trained in neuropsych testing. And as I was testing, I kind of noticed a certain pattern of traits of kids, not unlike myself in some ways, but I started working with them because I got them. And one of the issues they had was social skills, and working with them on social skills, I found teaching do this, do that, this is the right thing to do, right. So you have to do it, didn't work as well as helping them learn how to think and help them learn how to understand things. And so I, just like Rob, increasingly was going to people's experience. So I was doing that and began to blog about it, began to write about understanding the experience. That I remember one thing I called explanations, not excuses, because I think, Rob, you found the same thing. When you tried to explain a child to a school or to pretty much anybody, they said, oh, you're making excuses for them. And we weren't. We were talking about how the child thought and who the child was.
Well, you're bringing up a good, and you're a great example of my point. What you're saying, and what you're blogging about, and what you're writing in these very peer-reviewed journals, was something I've never seen before. This is new to the field.
Because of my blogging, I was invited into some autism-only spaces, and as I got to know autistic adults, I was totally stunned that everything I had been taught was wrong. I mean, I've been getting at it through my therapy, but in general, that the people I was meeting were friendly and caring and wanted to be connected and supportive and listen to each other and had really funny senses of humor. And I'm like, wow, the understanding of autism that says people don't talk, people aren't empathic, people don't want to connect, was just fundamentally wrong. So that became a passion for me. I wrote a couple journal articles for professional journals on diagnosing adults. Then I really got into the whole issue of women, because all the research had been done on men, and women have different histories, and women look totally different. Women don't look like autistic men.
Nobody talked about that.
And everyone said, well, there's 4 autistic guys to every one autistic girl, and I'm like, that's because you wouldn't know an autistic girl if you sat on her. So I wrote an article on diagnosing women that has, I think, been, really well received. I also wrote a blog on how traditional education results in kids with PTSD. And so, but I think it was the professional article that got us together.
That's right. I looked at those and I said, wait a second, this is rare. Somebody has my orientation, my philosophy, and I say mine because I feel it's me against the world. Like what you were saying, you try to convince others, like in an educational setting, like, wait, you're not looking at this the right way. But it's like you feel like it's you against the world. And here I'm reading these articles, like, wow, I have to say hello to this person.
So I get a letter together with a copy of the book, introducing himself and saying, would you like to work together? And after several months, because it takes me a while to do things, I wrote back and said, sure, why not? So I got an email from him, would you like to be on a webinar with me and, for a national association? And I went, I don't do things like that. I don't talk. So he said, well, let's do a Zoom call. So I went on this Zoom call and I was on a national webinar. And I'm like, what am I doing?
And you were terrific. I mean, she was great.
And so we were, so we're both passionate about the same things, and we have a similar point of view in terms of going to experience. And after I had written a blog on how kids come out with PTSD, there was this overwhelming response of 263,000 people saying, this is my story, this is my kid's story. And we'd both been going into schools and going into families and explaining the person who we were seeing, and we were told, but you're just making excuses. And we're saying, well, no, we're helping you understand.
Right.
And kids in schools were running into this all the time, not being understood, being invalidated, being told to be who they weren't, being forced to conform. And by this response, I decided, I ought to write a book about this. And so he'd written a book. So I said, hey, you want to write a book together? So
that's where we are right now.
Right.
Yeah.
We actually finish each other's sentences because when we write, we actually write together. We talk about a thought and we get together what that thought is, and then Rob kind of helps flesh it out, and I put it into words, and then he corrects the words.
Look,
and then we have a sentence.
So that's a start of who we are, where we are today, and how we are, professionally, personally. Yeah.
Friends and co-authors, and eager to share all of this experience with you.
Yeah, and try to make a difference in the world.
Thanks so much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.